Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. This is another Q&A answering video. I'm going to do this every week until people say stop doing this. And hopefully you guys like it. I'm trying to, answer your questions. You can really ask me anything comic related and I'll try to give you some good answers. So the first question in my list of questions, just so you know, when I do these, I will do shout outs. So if you want your channel promoted on my channel, this is a great way of doing it because I'll shout out your channel. So Callan Lowe, he wrote, what is your biggest regret in your history of collecting? Actually, I have a few. But there was one where maybe it was like so huge of a thing and I sort of really missed out on it. And I feel like, man, it was a huge opportunity. There was this comic shop, and this is during the 90s where there was sort of the comic bust, okay? And the comic shop basically was going out of business, and they had everything. They had like really awesome collection of Silver Age comics, a lot of Silver Age, mostly Silver Age, and some Bronze Age stuff. And they literally said they would go half guide on everything. So I could have bought it at those prices. Back in the day, those comics weren't even that expensive, and I could have gotten them half price. So I did go in there, and I didn't have much money at the time. So I basically went in with like a guide, and I was like, okay, this is a key, get this key. And I was just basically buying the keys that were available. But I bought like a lot of cheap ones. At the time, I bought a lot of Spider-Man keys and a few FF keys. Like I bought the first Madam Web, the first Black Cat, things like that. And those are later comics. But they also had on the wall the first appearance of Iron Man, like Tales of Suspense 39. Is that right? I'm gonna drive myself crazy. And I saw that and I was like, oh, that's a really cool comic. But it's 39, issue 39. And back then, like I should have checked. I should have said, hey, look, that looks like a really cool comic. And it would have been half price. I think it would have cost me about $500 at the time. And it was a high grade. So I always regret that. So I really wish I had gone, like somehow inherited a few, like more money at the time, because I was eating ramyun, or Mr. Noodles actually, at the time, just to afford my comics. So I had a bit of money for food, but instead of buying food, I'd buy comics. And I'd eat ramyun to supplement that, that fact that I spent all my money on comics. That's how poor I was. So at that time, $500 would have been like a vast fortune. But I really regret not having the money back then and not being able to buy those cool comics that shop had. They had some major grails and they were selling them basically for cheap. And they actually ended up selling it even cheaper. I think at the end, they were selling the whole entire store for like 1/10 of what the comics were worth. And you could just picked up like pretty much everything for dirt cheap. They were selling whole long boxes for like $100 or something. It was just crazy. And they were all keys. It was like a box full of keys, $100. And yeah, just craziness. I really regret not having spent more there. So that was my biggest. Next one is from Rocket Fighter 8. And what is your favorite comic book in your collection, but only one from each comic book era? So with with that, it's kind of a strange thing. Like my All Stars number 8, I'm kind of trying to point to it, is my favorite from the Golden Age. Even though I might kind of change on that. Sometimes I'll say sometimes, you know, my Wonder Woman #1, or sometimes I'll say my Sensation Comics #1. But really, I should say, and always say, my All-Star 8. And the reason it's my favorite from that era is it's the first appearance of Wonder Woman. And she's a major character that I really love. So that's my Golden Age favorite comic, and it's probably one of my favorite comics in my collection. Now, going into the Silver Age, it would probably be Fantastic Four #1, which is right there. Right there. Another kind of big key in my collection. You know, I really see that Fantastic Four #1 as being sort of the book that kind of defined the Silver Age and introduced that whole Marvel domination of comics. So it's a major key in my mind, and it's one that I really love. So I was super excited when I won that auction. So that's the next one. Going into the Bronze Age, I would have to go with Hulk 181. Just because I always feel like, you know, whenever I want to power myself up, like, you know, get charged for the day, I always like imagine myself being like Wolverine, like with the claws coming out. And I just feel like I really identify with that character. I really like, well, not that I look like anything like Wolverine, but I identify with that character. He's Canadian. And I just think he's kind of like the coolest character from the Bronze Age. So definitely that would be my favorite Bronze Age comic. And I really should show these as I'm saying all this. I do have all of these comics, and since they're in my collection. The next one would be going into the Copper Age. So we're talking 80s. That one you got me on. I don't really know. For Copper Age, I'm just trying to think. I really don't know. I really don't know what would be my Copper Age favorite. That would be Copper Age. I would have to almost guess on that one. I would, because like, you know, you can ask me that on any day and I wouldn't know, because there's just so many in the 80s that I can think about. Like I wish there was one that I wish was in my collection from the Copper Age, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1, and someday I hope to get that. Yeah, that would be it if I had that book. But yeah, so that I don't really know in the Copper Age. It's kind of one of those time periods where I'm not super sure which would be my favorite. Maybe I'm gonna show it since I have it in my collection. This one, another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle one, which is kind of weird. You know, you wouldn't like. I always go on about Golden Age stuff, but I actually really like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was a big Turtle fan, and I still am. I really like this book because I really liked the character Casey Jones. Just really great character. I just really like him. So I guess since it's in my collection and it's my next best thing to not having Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I guess this would be the answer to that question. So that was a really hard one for Copper Age. And then going into the Modern Age, then you get sort of the question about what would that be? Sort of modern comics. There's just a bunch. So I would probably say like maybe a Lady Death or Evil Ernie. Those are kind of barely into the Modern Age. Because I like those characters. I like the bad girl stuff from the 90s. Also, I like Goon. So that one, as again, these more modern ones, it's a little harder for me to pin down because there's just so many that I can think of. and I have so many in my collection. So I really don't know. But I would say one of those, like Goon, maybe Invincible. I really love the series for Invincible, so it's another comic that I would say, oh, that's really awesome. Maybe, thinking about it, like, you know, I got to really think about these things. I'm trying to do this on the spot rather than, like, I didn't really prepare. Another one that is in my collection that I really love from the modern era is Walking Dead #1. That was my grail from the modern age. So maybe that would be my #1. So I had to think about it a bit. When I won that auction, I was just like shouting, going crazy, because I got it at such a great price. It's a 9.6. I paid like a little bit over $1,000 for it. I was just like so excited. I never thought I would have that one in my collection, and it was just, that would be my #1. So that's the answer. Walking Dead #1. I was super excited to get that. Okay, so that's all the eras covered. And next one is Michael L. How many of the FF 1 through 100 do you own? I would say at least 40 to 50. No, maybe less. Maybe 40 of the top 100 Fantastic Fours. And the reason I don't have more of that top 100 is I really just focused on the keys. I didn't actually get all the filler issues, and there's a lot of filler issues. So I do have most of the keys from 1 to 100. The only ones that I are missing that I really would love to have would be maybe FF4 and FF6. Those two I'm missing in my collection that I really like to have, because that's, you get the first Submariner, and then you get in #6, you get the Submariner and Doctor Doom working together. And it's really where Doctor Doom gets his powers. So it's kind of a major key in a way. So those two I really like. I wish I had, but I don't have. So, but I have pretty much all the other keys within the 1 through 100. So I hope that answers the question. Okay, Bronzeville Comics. What is your oldest comic in your collection? What run are you trying to complete, but you're not quite there? Okay, so oldest comic in my collection, I actually have right here, is this Donald Duck. First appearance of Donald Duck in comics. I believe this is 1935 or 34, somewhere around there. We really should write it on the back so I know, and I won't sound stupid when I don't know my own comics. But this is a really cool comic. Has like this canvas cover, and it's kind of huge. It's really great, and it's one of those ones that's actually pretty affordable. It's old, but very affordable for its age. It's like a couple $100. You can pick this up in a low grade, and even in a high grade, you can pick it up fairly affordably because it is kind of durable with that canvas cover. So this is my oldest comic, and it's one that I really love. I'm a big Disney collector. Okay, so the next one is from Keston's old comic book, old school comic books. And I'm actually going to do a collab with Keston. He's a great guy. So I'm really looking forward to releasing that video later. It will be coming out soon. I recommend you check out his channel. So that's Keston's Old School Comic Books. Really great channel. Very undersubscribed. He is a great guy. And the question he said was, can you slow down your video production? And I really want to talk about that just a little bit in this video, that I actually try to produce a video every day. And that's been my goal. That's my New Year's resolution this year. Because last year, actually, I started this channel mid last year, and I produced like 1 video per month. It was like, I was barely producing anything. And it was like, the channel would barely grow. I think I had maybe 20 subscribers at the beginning of the year, or something like that, you know. So really this year I said, hey, I'm going to make this my hobby, my real, you know, I have a real passion for comics, and I really want to go full out on it. And I made my New Year's resolution that every day I would post a video. So that's going to be my production schedule, that I'm always going to have a video out every day at 11:45 Eastern. So you can always see that my new videos every day. And I'm going to keep on doing that until hopefully I don't die. But, but yeah, as long as I can. So, and I've scheduled videos actually for the next 2 weeks. So that's just to give you a sense of how I can do that. Now the next one is a bunch of questions from Will Wang. I might have missed one in one of your previous videos, but can you do a video on how you acquired your first appearance of Wonder Woman? I actually did do a video on that, and I'll get into that story in just a second here. So right there is my All-Stars number 8. And with that comic, what happened was it was at my local comic book shop. He had it. And I was like, he knew that I liked Wonder Woman. And he's like, oh, you know that I have her first appearance. I'm like, really? Oh, wow. I was like, oh, what, like, how much would that go for? And I was thinking hundreds of thousands in a way. That's where my mind was, like, because she's such a major character. And he was like, oh, like 40, 50,000. I was like, oh, wow, that's a bit much. I can't really afford that. And so I was like, can you kind of negotiate that, or can I pay it in installments? So then I talked him down to 25,000. It was like, well, I really chopped it in half the price. I'm good at negotiating. That's my thing. And so I was like, okay, 25,000. But I actually did some research. And the great thing about, a bit of knowledge goes a long way. Okay, so I looked up that book, and it actually, I could find out where it came from because it has some distinctive features. He had it as a raw copy. And I looked it up. He showed me the book, and I went through all the pages to make sure everything was there, and it was fine. But when I looked it up, I found out that it was a green label originally a green label. And I think it was a mistake by CGC when they gave it a green label, and they gave it a 1.5 green label. So it was a low grade green label. So what I did was I was like, hey, this seems a little, I went back to the comic guy and said, hey, look, I know how much you kind of paid for this book. I know that it was a green label. Can you give me a break on the price? So he dropped it again to 20,000. So now I've saved even more. But he said that he didn't believe that it deserved the green label. And he showed me the reason it got the green label was the centerfold. Now, if you know anything about Golden Age comics, the centerfold often gets detached and will even fall out. Like a lot of Golden Age books, you'll find missing centerfolds. It's the most annoying thing, but it happens a lot because of the way that they staple them. So, with that being said, I looked at the centerfold. Was it a married centerfold? And the tanning on the page matched exactly. And the way the centerfold actually got removed or kind of detached was that it was ripped at one of the staples. And so what happened was you could actually match the paper, like the way it was ripped to the actual centerfold. So it was obvious that it was not a married centerfold. So CGC made a mistake on that. And so what I did was I sent it to PGX. And what I did is I paid for pressing, cleaning, and because it was really it needed a press and a clean. So and then I got it graded. They graded it back as a 2.5. And I think actually that's a valid grade for the book. Even the comic guy, he's like, it was really undergraded. It could have used a clean and press. And obviously it got the grade up. And it got a blue label as well. So that was a major, major benefit for me because, it basically doubled or tripled the price. So that was kind of huge. So that was how I got that book. And when the guy at the comic shop heard that it was a Blue Label and a 2.5, he was like, "Oh, that's nice." He wasn't too happy. Well, he was happy for me, but at the same time, he was like, "Yeah, I think he thought he had really undersold it." So that was the story behind that one. He also asked, Will Wang also asked, "How did you get your buy-in from your wife with your comic purchases?" And he said, "Asking this because something I need your help with on my end." So the way I did it is the worst way. The way that I got my wife to buy in on it is I basically bribed her. I gave her a very nice Rolex watch, like a $15,000 watch. So I said, because I never told her how much I was spending on comics, so I kept that kind of secret. I'm sort of the one that manages all the finances in the house, and she's a stay-at-home wife. So I cover most of the expenses. Now she's actually working, so maybe she has a bit more reason to get mad at me. But back at the time when I was buying a lot of these comics, she was a stay-at-home wife, and I basically bribed her. Yeah, that's how I got her to buy in. She hates the comics. She thinks they're a waste of money. She's like, sell them. I'm like, I love them too much. So yeah, she's very jealous of the comics, just so you know. Wives and comics don't mix sometimes. Okay, so next one is from Jason Powers. And Jason Powers asked a couple questions as well. What do you do for a living? So that's kind of an interesting thing. Basically, what happened is I met my wife in Canada, and she's Korean, actually, just so you know. And at the time, I was studying physics. I was a physics major. So here I am, like this physics guy. And I completed that, and then I did a computer course, and I actually learned to program in about 10 different languages. So I know all this programming stuff. And I was going to do that. That was going to be my career. I was going to be a computer guy, and I hated it, by the way. So what happened was my wife was like, "Oh, I got to go back to Korea." So I was like, "Okay, I'll go with you." Because I kind of liked her a lot, and I figured, hey, I'll go with her to Korea. We got married later, right? So I lived in Korea for like almost 3 years, and I saved a lot of money. And the whole internet thing was booming at that time. Like if you just had a website, you could get millions of dollars just to have a website. So I was like, oh, when I got back to Canada and we got married, I was like, I'm going to use the money I saved from Korea to start my own business. And that's what I did. And I started a business doing digital marketing. So I have a digital marketing agency now. It's grown over the years. And I'm one of the top guys in my field for like SEO. I'm an SEO specialist. But I also have a team of digital specialists that I manage. I have about 20 people working for my company. And, we do okay. It's in my business, it's a small business, but it does well. It does reasonably well. So I survive. So that's what I do for a living. I, market companies and promote them online, and they do well too. My bragging thing is I've generated billions of dollars in sales online. So that's my bragging thing. I've marketed thousands of businesses, so it's not that big of a deal maybe, but it's kind of cool that I've marketed some pretty major businesses actually. Okay, so that's my background. The next thing he asked is if your kids are old enough, are they into comics? If so, which ones? And are you only letting them read the Daffy Duck like your parents to me, like with me? So my kids are 12 and 16. So they're fairly old. My son loves Swamp Thing, and I let him read whatever he wants. I try to encourage him to read some of the, everything. He read a lot of the more fun comics too. He loves Dr. Fate and Spectre and Phantom Stranger. So he's read a lot of the more fun comics and the original Phantom Stranger stuff. and he's, you know, he loves them too. And we sometimes have arguments about first appearance things and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool. Like, he's kind of into the comics too, but not as much, because, you know, every so often he'll do his gaming stuff, and you know, that's kids, you know, like, it's not, sometimes it's cool when your parents do it, sometimes it's not cool. Right now I'm in that daddy's not so cool phase of child development, so yeah, it is what it is. So hopefully he'll get back into comics again, and, you know, we can talk comics again. My daughter really isn't in comics. You know, she's got other things that she does. She's very academic orientated, strangely enough. So, good kid. Both are really good kids. So that's my family. Next question is from QE. My question, if you do another video, is Star Trek versus or Star Wars. Which would I choose? So I'm a big fan of both Star Trek and Star Wars. And I would probably say Star Wars, even though it used to be the case that what I would say is, in the movies, Star Wars. This is when I was a kid. And on the TV, Star Trek. I loved, like, I didn't like the Star Trek movies. I loved the Star Trek series on TV. And I didn't really like the Star Wars. They had a few, like, Ewoks and a few other, this is when I was a kid, so this is a long time ago. They had a few cartoon series for Star Wars, and I thought they were kind of so-so. So I liked, for TV, I would say Star Trek. And then for movies, I would say Star Wars, because I love the Star Wars movies. They were brilliant. They were my favorite movies. But then, now, if you look at it, I would say Star Wars in terms of the TV, because, like, The Mandalorian is a great series. But the movies were terrible. I really didn't like the latest movies. They're just crap. They're just not that great. And it really ruined the whole series the whole franchise in my mind, the movies. But the TV series Mandalorian was great. And I even liked the Clone Wars stuff. You know, that was pretty good too for the TV. so that's kind of the switch. Now, what's happened with Star Trek is, I actually thought the movies were okay. I wouldn't say that they were brilliant. There were some things that really bothered me. But the TV series with Star Trek now is so bad that I can't even watch it. It's just too painful to watch. So I hope that answers the question. It's kind of like, I love both in theory, but you got to get better writers. They both need better writers. So yeah, that would be my opinion. But in comics, that's a totally different thing. I would say Star Wars easily, because there's so many Star Wars comics that I really, really love. Even though I love the Star Trek comics too, I have all the Gold Key Star Trek. I have both all complete, but I actually really love the Star Wars comics. So, if that makes sense. Okay, Ronald Burgess basically asked, just wondering, do you have a complete Avengers run? And again, no. Just like with my Fantastic Four, I bought all the keys, and I don't have the fillers yet. So I always do that as a means of collecting. I buy the keys first because I figure they'll spike in price. The fillers will sort of generally be cheap regardless of what else is happening. So I buy the keys first, and then I gradually fill it in. But with Avengers, I'm really not actively filling in the run. I just have a lot of the major books within the Avengers run. So I don't have nearly a complete collection. It's actually less complete than my Fantastic Four collection. Like, I would say maybe 20 or 30 out of the top 100 Avengers. Okay, and then John Gabriel asked, you talked about how your Golden Age, how to collect Golden Age characters that have totally disappeared into the mists of history and are no longer published. And and in some cases not even remembered by younger fans. So my question is this: suppose one of the major comic publishers said to you, "Hey, Alan, we will publish your favorite vanished character. Which one would you want it to be?" Okay, so my favorite characters from the Golden Age. Again, I love women in comics, so you know, I was a '90s guy. I loved all the bad girl comics, and I loved in the Silver Age. I loved Vampirella, and in the Golden Age, the same thing. I love my female characters. I love my Wonder Woman. I love my Blonde Phantom. I love my Phantom Lady. But one character that I really would love to see, a big publisher, it's actually being produced by Dynamite right now, is Miss Mask. I really love Miss Mask. She is like my favorite, one of these sort of dead characters, I guess, like character that sort of didn't survive the Golden Age. I just think she's a great character. I think she's really cool. What I've found is I'm kind of getting tired in the way of the super overly powered characters, and where they just can beat everything. They're just overpowered, and I kind of want somebody that's a little bit more real, you know, something that you can kind of associate with. And Miss Mask is kind of like that. The revamp, they gave her some powers, but in the original Golden Age version of Miss Mask, drawn by Alex Schomburg, she was really cool because she was kind of like a detective. She was kind of interested in crime, you know, solving crimes, and she, you know, she looked beautiful, and I love women to look beautiful in comics. So I'd really like to see her revived and brought back into prominence. So yeah, she's a character I really, really love. But if they're going to bring it back, if they're going to, you know, do it in a big way, let me get first all the Golden Age ones and then do it. Because I would say just give me a year to pick up all my Golden Age issues of her, and then sure, go ahead. I just like ask them to wait a year so I could pick up all the issues, because I really do like her as a character. I'm sort of a big fanboy right now for that one character right now. So it's kind of weird, but that's kind of my thing. Other ones would be Rula and some of the Jungle Girl ones. I'd love to see some Jungle Girl stuff come back as well. So yeah, that is this week's Q&A. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope my stories were relatively interesting. And thanks for watching, and please like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, always check me out on Instagram. I'm posting some really cool stuff there as well. I try to post out every day there as well, and maybe sometimes 2-3 times a day. And I try to post out full explanations of the comics that I'm buying and why I bought them, in terms of why there are key issues. And I try to focus on keys when I buy things. So I definitely recommend checking that out, because it'll give you some insights into maybe potentially hot books. It seems like whenever I buy into something, it becomes a hot book. So I've been sort of lucky that way, that I bought it first and then it becomes a hot book. So hopefully I can keep that tradition going. So thanks again for watching, and bye for now.